The war had lasted for 300 years. 300 years of blood, fire, and death across 1,000 star systems. The Galactic Concord, an alliance of 17 different alien species, had fought with everything they had. But it was not enough. It was never enough. The Vreth Dominion was winning. High Commander Thelzon stood on the bridge of the Time Celestine Dream Asterisk, the last great warship of the Aelori people. His blue skin had turned pale from stress. His 4 eyes stared at the holographic display in front of him, watching red dots spread across the galaxy map like a disease. Each red dot was a Vreth fleet. Each red dot meant death. "We have lost contact with the Keithany Cluster Defense Force," said his communications officer. Her voice was barely a whisper. "All 12 battle groups, gone." Thelzon closed his eyes. 12 battle groups, 40,000 soldiers, fathers, mothers, children who would never come home. "How many ships do the Vreth have now?" he asked. "Our scouts report over 12,000 warships gathering at Keithany. They are preparing for the final push. In 2 weeks, maybe less, they will strike at the core worlds. The core worlds, the heart of the Concord, home to billions of innocent lives. If those worlds fell, the war was over. Everything was over." Thelzon turned to look at the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, the enemy was coming, and he had nothing left to stop them. "There is one option we have not tried," said a voice behind him. Thelzon turned. Ambassador Telvan of the Concord Council stood in the doorway. He was old, even by Aelori standards. His robes were simple, his face tired, but his eyes still held a spark of something. Hope, perhaps, or desperation. "We have tried everything," Thelzon replied. "We have begged every species in the galaxy for help. No one will stand against the Vreth." "Not every species," Telvan said. "We have not asked the humans." The bridge went silent. Officers stopped working. All eyes turned to the ambassador. Thelzon felt a chill run down his spine. The humans do not involve themselves in galactic affairs. They have not left their territory in 200 years. They do not trade. They do not talk. They are ghosts. "They are also the only species the Vreth have never attacked," Telvan said. "Have you ever wondered why?" Thelzon had wondered. Everyone had wondered. The Vreth Dominion conquered everything in their path. They showed no mercy, no fear. But they had never once crossed into human space, not even a single scout ship. It was as if an invisible wall protected humanity. Or perhaps something else. Something that made even the Vreth afraid. "There are stories," Thelzon said slowly. "Old stories. From before my grandfather was born. They say the humans once fought a war of their own. Against the Kreth hegemony. I know the stories," Telvan said. "They say the humans destroyed them, completely. Every ship, every planet, every living thing. They say the humans turned the Kreth homeworlds into hollow shells of rock and ash." "I know. And you want to invite these creatures to our space? To our worlds?" Telvan stepped closer. His voice dropped low. "I want to survive. I want my children to survive. I want the Concord to exist tomorrow. And the day after. If that means asking the humans for help, then I will get on my knees and beg." Thelzon stared at the old ambassador for a long moment. Then he looked back at the map. The red dots were everywhere. The blue dots, representing Concord forces, were so few. So very few. "Send the message," he said. "Invoke Protocol Omega. Ask the humans for help." The message traveled across the stars at faster than light speed. It passed through relay stations and communication hubs. It crossed the empty space between Concord territory and the mysterious region known simply as human space. And finally, after 3 days, it arrived at Titan Station, orbiting the ringed planet Saturn in the Sol system. Admiral Yellen Vasquez read the message in her private quarters. She was a woman of 50 years, with gray hair cut short and eyes the color of storm clouds. Her face showed no emotion as she read the words. A desperate plea from a dying alliance. A request for military aid. A confession that without help, billions would die. She set down the datapad and walked to her window. Outside, she could see the shipyards of Titan Station. Massive structures floated in the darkness, building things that no alien eye had ever seen. Ships, weapons, tools of war that humanity had spent 2 centuries perfecting. Humanity had chosen isolation. After the Kreth War, they had looked at what they had done. They had seen the burning worlds and the floating corpses. They had felt the weight of their own violence. And they had decided to step back, to build in silence, to wait, but they had never forgotten how to fight. Vasquez pressed a button on her desk. This is Admiral Vasquez to Fleet Command. I am invoking Emergency Protocol 7. All vessels are to begin immediate mobilization. A voice crackled through the speaker. Admiral, that would mean activating the entire fleet. Every ship, every station. Are you certain? The Galactic Concord has asked for our help, Vasquez said. Billions of lives are at stake. We did not build this fleet to let it gather dust. Understood, Admiral. What are your orders? Vasquez looked out at the shipyards one more time. She thought about the war that was coming. She thought about the enemy who had conquered so much of the galaxy, and she thought about what humanity was about to show the universe. Tell the fleet to prepare for departure, she said. We leave in 48 hours. And tell them to bring everything. Every dreadnought. Every carrier. Every destroyer. If we are going to do this, we are going to do it right. She ended the communication and sat down in her chair. For 200 years, humanity had been silent. For 200 years, the galaxy had forgotten what humans could do. The Vreth had never learned. They had only heard the whispers, the legends, the warnings passed down from species who remembered the Kreth War. Now they would learn. Vasquez picked up the datapad again and typed a response to the Concord. It was short, only 3 words. We are coming. Across human space, the message spread. On 100 worlds, on 1,000 stations, men and women received their orders. Engines roared to life. Weapons were loaded. Soldiers said goodbye to their families. The greatest fleet ever assembled by any species in galactic history began to move, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. 7 days had passed since the Concord sent their desperate message to humanity. 7 days of waiting. 7 days of fear. High Commander Thelzahn stood on the bridge of the Time's Celestine Dream *, watching the empty space ahead. His fleet, what remained of it, floated around him. 342 ships. That was all the Concord could gather. Against 12,000 Vreth warships, it was nothing. It was suicide. But they would fight anyway. What choice did they have? Commander, said his sensor officer. We are detecting unusual readings at the edge of the system. Thelzahn turned. What kind of readings? Fold space distortions, sir. Many of them, very large. Fold space was the method most species used for faster-than-light travel. Ships would fold the fabric of space around themselves and jump from one point to another. The distortions before a jump were like ripples in water before a stone breaks the surface. How many ships? Thelzahn asked. The sensor officer's hands trembled as he worked his console. His face went pale, then paler, then white as snow. Sir, I think there is an error in our sensors. What do you mean? The readings suggest thousands of ships, many thousands. That cannot be correct. Thelzahn felt his heart beat faster. Show me. The holographic display flickered and changed. Instead of the local star system, it now showed the sensor data. Hundreds of dots appeared at the edge of the screen. Then, hundreds more. Then, thousands. By the ancient stars, whispered Ambassador Telvan, who had joined them on the bridge. What is that? Before anyone could answer, space itself seemed to tear open. Bright lines of light cut through the darkness. And from those lines came ships. The first wave was destroyers. They were small compared to what came next, but each one was still twice the size of any Concord vessel. They moved in perfect formation, spreading out like the fingers of an opening hand. There were hundreds of them. The second wave was cruisers. Longer, heavier, covered in weapons. They took positions behind the destroyers. creating a wall of metal and fire. There were hundreds of these too. The third wave was carriers. Massive ships, each one carrying hundreds of smaller fighters in their bellies. They hung back from the front line, ready to release their deadly children at a moment's notice. And then came the dreadnoughts. Thelzon had never seen anything like them. They were not ships. They were moving mountains. Each dreadnought was the size of a small moon, covered in armor so thick that it seemed impossible. Weapons bristled from every surface. Engines larger than entire space stations pushed them forward. "Count them," Thelzon ordered. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. "Count all of them." The sensor officer worked frantically. Numbers scrolled across his screen. After 3 full minutes, he looked up. There were tears in his eyes. 9,217 vessels, Commander. Plus fighters and support craft. 9,000 ships. Thelzon could not process that number. The entire Concorde, at the height of its power, had never fielded more than 4,000 warships. And here were the humans, with more than twice that number, but the fleet was not finished arriving. One final ship emerged from fold space. It came alone, in the center of the formation, and when Thelzon saw it, he understood why the Vreth had never crossed into human territory. It was a battle station, a mobile fortress the size of a planet. Its surface was covered with weapons that Thelzon could not identify. Strange towers and domes rose from its hull. Lights pulsed along its length, like the heartbeat of some ancient god. "That is the Times UHS Prometheus *", said Ambassador Telvan. His voice was barely a whisper. "I have read about it in old intelligence reports. It is the flagship of the human navy. They say it can crack a planet in half." "I believe it," Thelzon said. A communication signal flashed on the main console. Someone was trying to contact them. Thelzon straightened his uniform and tried to calm his breathing. "Open the channel," he ordered. A holographic image appeared in front of them. It showed a human woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple military uniform with no decorations except for a small badge on her chest. Behind her, Thelzon could see a bridge larger and more advanced than anything the Concorde had ever built. "This is Admiral Yellen Vasquez, of the United Human Systems," the woman said. "I am responding to your request for military assistance." Ambassador Telvan stepped forward. "Admiral Vasquez. I am Ambassador Telvan, of the Galactic Concorde. We are grateful beyond words for your response. But I must confess, we did not expect such a large fleet." The human woman tilted her head slightly. "You asked for help against 12,000 enemy warships. Did you expect us to send less than that?" Telvan opened his mouth, but no words came out. "We have studied the tactical situation," Vasquez continued. "The Vreth Dominion has gathered their forces at the Kethany cluster. They are preparing a final assault on your core worlds. Our plan is simple. We will jump to Kethany and engage the enemy directly. Your ships can support from the rear." "Support?" Thelzon said. "We should be fighting alongside you. This is our war." For the first time, a small smile appeared on Vasquez's face. It was not cruel or mocking. It was almost sad. "Commander, I respect your courage, but your ships are not designed for the kind of battle we fight. Stay behind our line, provide rescue operations, pick up survivors. That is how you can help." "Survivors? Admiral, the Vreth do not leave survivors. They have never fought humans," Vasquez said simply. "Now, if you are ready, we will begin the jump to Kethany in 30 minutes. I suggest you prepare your crews for what they are about to see." The communication ended. Thelzon stood in silence, staring at the space where the hologram had been. "What do you think she meant?" asked his communications officer. "Prepare for what we are about to see?" Thelzon looked out the viewport at the human fleet. 9,000 ships. A mobile battle station. Weapons that could destroy worlds. "I think," he said slowly, "that we are about to learn why the Vreth have never attacked humanity. And I think we should be grateful that the humans are on our side." The fleet began to move. Human and Concorde ships together, jumping toward the Kethany cluster. Toward the enemy. Toward a battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. But deep in his heart, Thelzon felt something he had not felt in years: hope. The jump to the Cathany cluster took only seconds. One moment, the combined fleet floated in safe space. The next moment, they emerged into the heart of enemy territory, every ship in the Concorde fleet prepared for battle. Weapons powered up, shields activated, pilots climbed into their fighters, soldiers gripped their weapons and said quiet prayers to whatever gods they believed in. High Commander Thelzon stood on his bridge, watching the viewport with all four of his eyes. His heart beat fast. His mouth was dry. This was it. The final battle, the moment that would decide everything. But the battle never came. "Commander," said his sensor officer, "I am not detecting any enemy ships." Thelzon blinked. "What? There are no Vreth ships in the system." "None at all." "That is impossible. We had confirmed reports. 12,000 ships were gathered here." "Scan again." The officer ran his sensors over the entire system. Once. Twice. 3 times. Each scan showed the same result: nothing. The Cathani cluster was empty. Thelzon contacted the human flagship. Admiral Vasquez's face appeared on screen. For the first time, she looked confused. "Admiral, are you seeing what we are seeing?" "Empty space," Vasquez replied. "No enemy fleet. No defensive platforms. Just debris and abandoned stations." "Where did they go?" 12,000 ships cannot simply disappear." Vasquez did not answer immediately. She turned away from the screen and spoke to someone on her bridge. When she turned back, her expression had changed. The confusion was gone. In its place was something Thelzon could not identify. "Commander, I am sending scout ships to investigate the debris field. I suggest you do the same. Something happened here. We need to find out what." The next few hours were the strangest of Thelzon's life. He sent his own scouts into the cluster, while the human ships spread out across the system. What they found made no sense. The debris field was massive. Broken pieces of space stations floated in the darkness. Half-built ships drifted without power. Supply containers tumbled slowly through the void. It looked like someone had started building a massive invasion fleet and then simply stopped. "We found Vreth equipment," reported one of Thelzon's scouts. "Weapons, armor, food supplies. But no bodies. No crew. It is like everyone just left." Another scout reported the same thing. And another. Everywhere they looked, they found the same story. The Vreth had been here. They had been building. They had been preparing for war. And then they had abandoned everything and fled. But where? And why? Thelzon joined Ambassador Telvon on a shuttle to the human flagship. The Times UHS Prometheus Times was even more impressive up close. Its hull stretched for miles in every direction. Armed guards in heavy armor escorted them through corridors larger than some cities. Admiral Vasquez met them in a command center deep inside the station. Screens covered every wall, showing data from hundreds of scout ships. Human officers worked at countless consoles, analyzing information and speaking in quick, quiet voices. "We have searched the entire cluster," Vasquez said. "There is no sign of the enemy fleet. Based on the heat signatures of their abandoned engines, they left approximately 6 hours before we arrived." 6 hours, Telvon repeated. "They knew we were coming." "It appears so. But how? Our jump was secret. Only the highest commanders knew our destination." Vasquez turned to one of her officers. "Show them what we found." A large screen flickered to life. It showed a recording. The image was damaged and broken, but Thelzon could make out the inside of a Vreth warship. Alien figures moved across the screen. Their movements were strange, hurried, panicked. "We recovered this from an abandoned communications relay," Vasquez explained. "It is a Vreth transmission. Sent just before they left." The audio crackled. Vreth voices spoke in their harsh, clicking language. But the human computers had translated the words into text that scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Asterisk, emergency retreat ordered. All ships to withdraw immediately. Asterisk, asterisk, what about the invasion? The core worlds are undefended. Victory is certain. Asterisk. Asterisk. New intelligence. The humans are coming. The deathless ones are coming. Asterisk. Asterisk. How many ships? Asterisk. Asterisk. All of them. Asterisk. A long pause in the recording. Then, more voices. Speaking faster. Higher. Filled with fear. Asterisk. We cannot fight the deathless ones. You know the stories. You know what they did to the Kreth. Asterisk. Asterisk. The Kreth were fools. They attacked the humans first. We have not attacked them. Perhaps they will leave us alone. Asterisk. Asterisk. They are not coming to leave us alone. They are coming to destroy us. The hollow worlds. Remember? The burned cities? The silence where billions once lived? Asterisk. Asterisk. What do we do? Asterisk. Asterisk. Run. Run as far as we can. Beyond the rim. Beyond the edge of the galaxy. Somewhere they cannot find us. Asterisk. The recording ended. The screen went dark. Thelzon stood in silence. His mind struggled to understand what he had just heard. The Vreth. The great conquerors. The species that had destroyed empires and enslaved worlds. They had run away, without firing a single shot, without even trying to fight. They had run because they were afraid of humans. Deathless ones, Telvan said quietly. That is what they call you. It is an old name, Vasquez replied. Her voice was flat, empty of emotion. From the Kreth War, our soldiers kept fighting even when wounded, even when dying. The Kreth could not understand it. They thought we could not be killed. And the hollow worlds? Vasquez did not answer. She walked to the viewport and looked out at the empty space where 12,000 enemy ships should have been. The Vreth remembered what the galaxy forgot, she said finally. They remembered what happens when you threaten humanity. They decided that survival was more important than victory. Where will they go? Thelzon asked. Away. Far away. Based on their trajectory, they are heading for the edge of the galaxy. The void between stars where nothing lives. Vasquez turned back to face them. They would rather face the empty darkness than face us. Thelzon felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had asked the humans for help. He had brought them here. And now he was beginning to understand that he had invited something far more dangerous than the Vreth had ever been. The war is over, Telvan said. Without a battle. Without a single shot fired. Yes, Vasquez agreed. The war is over. But her eyes were distant. And Thelzon wondered what memories lived behind them. What terrible things had humanity done to earn such fear? And what would happen if anyone was ever foolish enough to make them do it again? The days after the Vreth disappeared were filled with confusion and celebration. Across the Concord, news spread quickly. The enemy was gone. The war was over. Billions of lives had been saved without a single drop of blood spilled. On 1,000 worlds, people danced in the streets. They cried tears of joy. They held their children close and thanked whatever powers had delivered them from destruction. But not everyone was celebrating. High Commander Thelzon could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the recording from the Vreth ship. He heard their terrified voices. He watched their panic as they fled from an enemy that had not even arrived yet. The Vreth had conquered 90 star systems. They had crushed armies and destroyed civilizations. They feared nothing. Until now. On the 5th day after the battle that never happened, Thelzon went to find Admiral Vasquez. He found her in an observation room aboard the Times Prometheus Asterisk, sitting alone in the darkness, staring at the stars. You cannot sleep either, he said. I can sleep, Vasquez replied without turning. I choose not to. Sleep brings dreams, and my dreams are not pleasant. Thelzon sat down across from her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the quiet hum of the ship around them. I need to know, Thelzon finally said. I need to understand what happened here. Why did the Vreth run? What are they so afraid of? You already know the answer. I know stories, rumors, legends told to children to make them behave. Thelzan leaned forward. I need the truth. My people deserve the truth. Vasquez was silent for a long time. Then she stood and walked to the window. The starlight cast shadows across her face. 212 years ago, she began. Humanity sent its first colony ships beyond our solar system. We were young, excited, foolish. We thought the universe would welcome us. The Kreeth hegemony found your ships, Thelzan said. I know this part. You know the official version. You do not know what really happened. Vasquez's voice grew harder. The Kreeth did not just destroy our colony ships. They captured them first. They took the colonists alive, 15,000 men, women, and children. Thelzan felt his stomach tighten. What did they do? They broadcast it, across every frequency. They wanted the entire galaxy to see. Vasquez closed her eyes. They took their time with the colonists. They wanted to send a message. They wanted humanity to know our place in the universe. By the ancient stars, the broadcast lasted for 3 days. When it was over, there was nothing left. Just empty ships floating in space. The Kreeth thought they had taught us a lesson. They thought we would stay in our system and never come out again. Vasquez turned to face Thelzan. Her eyes were dry, but her face was tight with old pain. They were wrong. What did humanity do? We changed. In those 3 days, watching our people die, something broke inside us, and something else was born. Vasquez sat back down. The war lasted 11 months. We did not stop to negotiate. We did not accept surrenders. We did not take prisoners. The stories say you destroyed their entire civilization. The stories are correct. The Kreeth had 140 inhabited worlds. When we were finished, they had none. Every city was burned. Every ship was destroyed. Every station was reduced to rubble. Vasquez looked at her hands. We killed them all, every single one. Soldiers. Civilians. It did not matter. We wanted them gone. Erased. As if they had never existed. Thelzan struggled to comprehend what he was hearing. But why? Revenge is one thing, but complete destruction. It was not just revenge. It was a message. The same kind of message they tried to send us. Vasquez met his eyes. We wanted the galaxy to know what happens when you hurt humanity. We wanted everyone to understand that there is no limit to what we will do to protect our own, no line we will not cross, no depth we will not sink to. The hollow worlds, Thelzan whispered, the Kreeth homeworlds. We did not just destroy them, we broke them, cracked them open like eggs, left them as monuments to our rage, so that anyone who ever thought about attacking humanity would see what awaits them. Silence filled the room. Thelzan tried to imagine it. The burning cities, the screaming people, the ships falling from the sky. 140 worlds turned to ash. And then what? He asked. After the war, we looked at what we had become. We saw the monsters staring back at us in the mirror. Vasquez's voice softened. We were horrified. We had set out to explore the stars, to find new friends, to build a better future. Instead, we had committed the greatest genocide in galactic history. So you withdrew. You isolated yourselves. We could not trust ourselves. If we stayed in the galaxy, if we kept meeting new species, eventually someone would provoke us again, and we would do the same thing we did to the Kreeth. Vasquez shook her head. So we built walls. We stayed inside our territory. We watched and waited and built our strength, hoping we would never have to use it again. But you kept building ships, weapons. You never stopped preparing for war, because we knew the truth. The galaxy is dangerous. Evil exists, and someday, someone would need us. Vasquez smiled sadly. We hoped that day would never come. But we knew it would. Thelzan sat in silence, processing everything he had heard. The humans were not heroes. They were not saviors. They were something far more complicated. They were monsters who had chosen to become guardians, killers who desperately wanted peace. The Vreeth knew, he said slowly. They remembered what happened to the Kreeth. Some lessons are never forgotten. The Vreeth built their empire by being the most feared species in the galaxy, but they always knew there was something out there more frightening than them. Vasquez stood again. Now you understand why they ran. They looked at our fleet and saw their own extinction. They saw the hollow worlds waiting for them. Would you have done it, if they had stayed and fought? Vasquez did not answer for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I do not know. And that terrifies me more than anything. Thelzahn rose and walked to stand beside her at the window. Together, they looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vreeth were fleeing toward the edge of the galaxy, running from memories of burning worlds and a species that never forgot how to hate. Thank you for telling me, Thelzahn said. Your people deserve to know who saved them, and what that salvation might have cost. Vasquez turned away from the window. Now, if you will excuse me, I need to prepare. The Concord Council wants to meet with us tomorrow. They want to thank us, offer us alliance, membership. Will you accept? Vasquez paused at the door. We will see. Humanity has spent 2 centuries learning to live with itself. I do not know if we are ready to live with others again. She left Thelzahn alone in the observation room, staring at the stars and wondering what kind of future awaited a galaxy where humanity had returned. The Great Hall of the Galactic Concord had not been this full in 300 years. Representatives from all 17 member species filled the chamber. Ambassadors, generals, leaders, and dignitaries from across the galaxy had gathered to witness this moment. At the center of the hall stood Admiral Yelena Vasquez. She wore her simple uniform, unchanged from the day she had led the fleet to war. Behind her stood 3 other human officers, their faces calm and unreadable. Ambassador Telvan stepped forward to address the assembly. His voice echoed through the massive chamber. 300 years ago, the Vreeth Dominion began their conquest of our galaxy. They destroyed worlds. They enslaved billions. They brought us to the edge of extinction. Telvan paused, letting his words sink in. 2 weeks ago, they vanished, fled beyond the rim of the galaxy. And they fled because of the species standing before us today. A murmur passed through the crowd. Every eye turned to look at the humans. Humanity answered our call when no one else would. They brought a fleet larger than any we had ever seen, and with that fleet, they won a war without firing a single shot. Telvan turned to face Vasquez. Today, the Galactic Concord wishes to honor humanity. We offer them full membership in our alliance. We offer them seats on the High Council. We offer them access to all our resources, our technology, our worlds. The chamber erupted in applause. Thousands of voices cheered. Flags waved. Music played. It was a celebration the likes of which the Concord had not seen in centuries. But Admiral Vasquez did not smile. She waited until the noise died down. Then she stepped forward and raised her hand for silence. Members of the Galactic Concord, she began. On behalf of humanity, I thank you for your offer. It is generous beyond measure. But I must decline. The chamber went silent. Shock spread across countless faces. Why? Someone called out. After everything you have done? You have saved us. You deserve to stand among us. We came because you asked for help, Vasquez said. We came because innocent lives were at stake. We came because it was the right thing to do. But we did not come to join your alliance. We did not come to take a place in your government, and we did not come to rule. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings from a dozen different worlds. Humanity has spent 200 years alone. We have spent that time thinking about who we are and what kind of people we want to be. We have built a society based on peace, on knowledge, on the belief that violence should always be the last resort. Vasquez paused. But we have also never forgotten what we are capable of. What we have done in the past, what we might do again if pushed too far. The chamber was utterly silent now. No one dared to speak. The Vreth ran because they remembered what we did to the Kreth hegemony. They remembered the hollow worlds. They remembered that when humanity goes to war, we do not stop until our enemies no longer exist. Vasquez's voice hardened. That is not a thing to celebrate. That is a thing to fear. And we fear it more than anyone. She turned to look at Telvan directly. If we join your concord, we will become part of your politics, your conflicts, your wars. And eventually, someone will make us angry. Someone will threaten what we love. And then, she shook her head. We cannot allow that to happen, for your sake and for ours. Then what will you do? Telvan asked. Return to isolation? Hide in your territory for another 2 centuries? We will return home, yes. But not to hide. Vasquez allowed herself a small smile. We will trade with you. Exchange knowledge. Build relationships. Slowly. Carefully. We will learn to be part of the galactic community again. But on our own terms. At our own pace. She stepped back and addressed the entire assembly one final time. Let there be no mistake. Humanity stands ready to help the galaxy if it is ever needed again. If another threat rises, if another tyrant tries to conquer, if innocent lives are at stake, we will come, and we will bring everything we have. Her voice dropped lower. But do not mistake our kindness for weakness. Do not test our patience. And never, ever threaten our people or our worlds. The chamber remained silent. No one knew what to say. We will leave tomorrow, Vasquez continued. Our fleet will return to human space. You will not see us again unless you ask. But know this. We will be watching. We will be ready. And if the darkness ever returns to this galaxy, it will find humanity standing in its path. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her officers followed. The crowd parted before them like water before a ship. At the door, Vasquez stopped and looked back one final time. Thank you for your offer. Thank you for your gratitude. But the greatest thanks you can give us is to build a galaxy where our help is never needed again. Where peace lasts. Where children grow up without fear of war. She smiled. And for a moment, she looked almost gentle. That is the future we want. Help us build it. And then she was gone. The next morning, High Commander Thelzan stood on the observation deck of the Times Celestine Dreamtimes and watched the human fleet prepare to leave. 9,000 ships, the greatest military force in galactic history, and they were simply going home. Ambassador Telvan joined him at the viewport. They could rule the galaxy, the old ambassador said quietly. With that fleet, they could conquer every world from here to the rim. No one could stop them. That is exactly why they will not do it, Thelzan replied. They know what they are capable of, and they are terrified of becoming the monsters they once were. Do you think they are right? To refuse our offer? Thelzan thought about the question for a long moment. He thought about the Vreth, fleeing into the void. He thought about the Kreth, destroyed so completely that nothing remained but legends and hollow planets. He thought about humanity, watching from the shadows, building their strength, hoping they would never have to use it. I think, he said slowly, that humanity is the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And I think they are also the most wise. They understand that true power is not measured by how many enemies you destroy, but by how many wars you prevent. The human fleet began to move. Ships by the thousands turned toward the edge of the system. The massive form of the Times, Prometheus Times, slowly rotated, its weapons silent, its purpose fulfilled. Will we ever see them again? Telvan asked. Only if we need them. Only if the darkness returns. Thelzan watched as the first human ships began to disappear into fold space. And if that day comes, I hope our grandchildren remember what we learned here today. Which is, Thelzan smiled grimly, that the most terrifying thing in the universe is not an enemy that wants to destroy you. It is a friend that could destroy everything, and chooses not to. One by one, the human ships vanished. The fleet that had saved the galaxy without firing a single shot slipped back into the silence from which it came. The stars burned on. cold and eternal. And somewhere in the void between galaxies, the Vreth Dominion fled ever onward, never looking back, haunted by the knowledge that there were some enemies that could never be defeated, only survived.